Hey, welcome back to your daily dose of anime recaps. In this video, we're heading into the world of the reverse villain. Our anti-hero, Jung-woo, is the reincarnation of evil, and after having spent generations locked in a battle with his mortal enemy, Shin-Ryong, the antithesis of evil, he finally finds himself reborn in modern-day Korea. While navigating the realms of gang culture, romance, and typical high school issues, Jung-woo is quickly finding himself at the heart of national politics, financial dispute, and betrayal. As this is happening, he slowly encounters the reincarnations of enemies killed in generations past, and they're out for revenge. We begin the story by learning the dream of our protagonist, becoming powerful enough to conquer the realm of Murim. He becomes a patriarch of a heavenly horse sect and uses his divine powers to grow his strength. Though a single man, Shin-Ryong opposes him. Before he can conquer Murim, he is slain by his mortal enemy, who had vowed to destroy all evil. However, in doing so, he had to sacrifice his own life. Despite this, our protagonist refuses to abandon his ambition to conquer Murim, and he's reincarnated as the embodiment of evil once again. In his second attempt at conquering the world, he's blocked by the absolute ruler of the sword, Shin-Ryong, who has also been reincarnated. Refusing to let history repeat itself, an epic fight ensues. This time, Shin-Ryong snatches another hollow victory after poisoning his sword, and despite being slain too, he's victorious. Later on, in our yet unnamed protagonist's fifth reincarnation, he attempts a different strategy. Instead of harnessing his personal physical strength, he favors military and political power. Another epic battle of the fates is ensued. And finally, it seems our protagonist has the upper hand, and yet, once again, Shin-Ryong uses his powerful trump card to attack to snatch another victory. After this, we meet a crying infant being carried through a busy city center by his mother. It seems she's looking for someone, Jung-woo, who has evaded her. However, before she can find him, an announcement sounds throughout the city informing the civilians that a portal has been opened and a grade 8 demon has emerged. The demon then obliterates a building, and it seems all hope is lost for the woman, before a unique appears. In this world, it seems a unique is a superpowered individual akin to a hero, or at least that's what it seems like. The unique reveals himself to be a fraud, a coward taking this opportunity to rob a bank. The trapped civilians threaten to reveal his behavior, although he claims he's not going to kill them all after he slays the demon. However, an unassuming child then appears and threatens the cowardly unique. It seems as though the demon is about to attack everyone, before the child unleashes an infinitely powerful punch to the colossal creature that literally splits it in half. Then we find out who Jung-woo is. He's our protagonist, the reincarnation of evil, and Shin-Ryong's mortal enemy. In our journey through this story, we learn about the existence of a group known as the Uniques. 3 decades ago, a phenomenon occurred that can't be explained easily. This event bestowed random individuals with what can only be described as superpowers. Fast forward to a decade ago, a rift in time and space suddenly appeared, and creatures we now call demons started their assault on Earth. Shifting back to the current timeline, we follow Park Sung-ho, the unique team leader, as he reviews security footage from a recent demon attack. He spots Jung-woo, a young boy, in the footage, and it becomes clear that this child managed to kill the demon. As if this wasn't surprising enough, a young blonde boy appears in the frame, Sung-ho's nephew, who also seems to possess extraordinary power. Jung-woo, in a moment of quiet reflection, laments his past lives. He recalls his burning hatred for Shin-Ryong, and the realization dawns on him that he's going to need to become incredibly powerful if he is to defeat his enemy once and for all. However, his deep immersion in a virtual reality game where he's battling other kids is interrupted by his mother. She pulls him out of the game, urging him to stop getting into fights with his peers. As the day progresses, a young boy with a sense of entitlement challenges Jung-woo to a duel. The child and heir to the Golden River clan believes his heritage will give him the upper hand. To demonstrate his prowess, he decimates a tree with just one punch. Jung-woo, unfazed, accepts the challenge, although it's evident that the actual fight will be scheduled for a later date. Sometime later, Kang Chung, our resident rich kid, is throwing an elaborate party for himself. Among the attendees is Jung-woo. Yuhara, a local celebrity who stars in TV commercials and is adored by the youth, also graces the event. Surprisingly, it appears that Yuhara takes a particular interest in Jung-soo, much to the annoyance of Kang-chun. In a twist of events, we uncover that Kang-chun's father might be involved in dubious activities. Aside from being the head of a respected clan, he seems to have a hand on the recent demon attacks. However, this shadowy revelation is cut short. The house suddenly crumbles to ruins, and amidst the rubble and chaos, we find Jung-soo. Kang-chun towers over a downed Jung-soo, flexing his muscles in a display meant to impress Yuhara. However, her attention appears to be elsewhere, showing no interest in his show of brute force. Additionally, we come to learn that Yuhara possesses a unique power, a special ability to perceive the health and condition of all living beings. Suddenly, Jung-soo reappears, materializing over Kang-chun's shoulder. He coolly states that he had allowed Kang-chun to land a hit on him, given that it was his birthday. He adds that Kang-chun should never have issued a challenge against him. With the intent to retaliate, Jung-soo draws his fist back. But before we see the result of his impending strike, our attention is directed to Kang-chun's father. He's engaged in a minor dispute with his assistant, a disagreement centered on the public perception of their clan. The assistant appears to be fixated on the Rift Core, a potent artifact that remains from a vanquished demon. He proceeds to reveal the origins of the Rift Core. It was obtained from Kim Taek-soo, a former boss of the Unique Association. The assistant shares that Kim Taek-soo had ventured into a rift following the tragic death of his family. There's a dark tale attached to the core. It's believed to be cursed, with past owners and their families meeting untimely ends. To add to the intrigue, Kang-chun's father drops a bombshell. The Rift Core, the object of such fascination and fear, is missing. He has misplaced it. The narrative then shifts back to Jung-soo, who has finally beaten his adversary. Or so it seems. Kang-chun is not truly defeated. A transformation has taken place within him. His aura has shifted, now radiating with an intense energy. The air crackles with the promise of an impending battle, but before it can kick off, we cut to the man in the red jacket. He stands before the Golden Gate, cognizant of the fact that the child he seeks is inside. He mistakenly attributes the defeat of the demon to Kang-chun, obviously to the fact that the real hero of the day is our protagonist, Jung-soo. Regardless of the misunderstanding, Kang-chun and Jung-soo brace themselves for the next chapter of their confrontation. Hara, with her unique ability, senses the looming danger. Jung-soo takes note of her ability, considering it a potential complication in future encounters. However, before she can react, Kang throws something at her with great force, causing her to crumble to the floor unconscious. Just like a lightning strike, Jung-soo initiates a powerful attack on his adversary, Kang-chun. This action triggers a flashback, taking us into the depths of Kang-chun's training days. It's clear that he shares a peculiar bond with his father, marked by subtle kindness despite the strangeness. During this time, Kang-chun reveals his deep-seated resentment for Jung-soo. The root of his bitterness partly stems from Jung-soo's intrusive presence during his otherwise pleasant childhood memories. Unmoved by Kang-chun's grievances, Jung-soo responds with indifference, admonishing him not to complain after facing defeat. In retaliation, Kang manages to land a hit on Jung-soo, the reincarnated deity. The scene then transitions back to Kang-chun's father. In a state of panic, they're desperately searching for the missing Rift Core, which seems to have vanished without a trace. It is disclosed that the Rift Core possesses the power to completely dominate the user's spirit, transforming them into devils. This revelation leads us to suspect that Kang-chun might have harnessed its power for his own benefit. Jung-soo seems to have discerned that a parasitic entity has taken control of his adversary. To everyone's shock, it appears the parasite is now fully taken over. Despite this, Kang's body proves to be insufficient for the parasite's needs, leading it to seek a new host. At this moment, a mysterious investigator appears on the scene. The parasite seizes control of the investigator's body, presenting Jung-soo with a predicament significantly more serious than what he had initially anticipated. Then Kang-chun's father appears and questions the man. He realizes he may have been the one to hurt his son and loses his calm immediately. The attack hurts the investigator, or the devil spirit to be more precise, and it hits him so hard it knocks the Rift Core out of his body. Jung-soo then steals it out of Lee Ho-jik's hands and crushes it between his own. Later on in the aftermath, Chong asks Kang if he remembers anything about the fight. The child reveals he can't remember anything at all, and it seems like his memories, while possessed, are lost. Upstairs, Lee Ho-juk is questioning Kang on his recent exploits. Lee thought it was Park Sung-ho responsible for the attack, before realizing it was actually his son. Lee is also impressed that Jung fought against his older son too, defeating him easily. Then he invites the child to spar with him. He accepts the offer against the advice of Lee's eldest son, and they begin a violent fight. Lee's destructive power throws Jung's body around the room and destroys everything in its path. However, the next thing we see is the crime boss's crippled body laid out on the floor, with Jung standing over him. We then cut maybe 10 years into the future, and Jung-soo stands over the hole in the wall, the aftermath of the day that he violently defeated the crime boss in a sparring match. Jung-soo, now much older, seems to have made friends with Kang, whose father has prevented him from fixing the damage after all this time. Instead, the hole commemorates the first time that Lee Ho-juk lost in a fight. Jung, Kang, and Lee lament the fight from 10 years ago, and they laugh that Lee is so fond of memories of being beaten by a 7-year-old boy. It seems as though Jung and Lee's youngest daughter have a strong bond, and Lee also reveals that he's been trying his hardest over the years to train his power to match that of the now teenage boy. Yet, it seems as though he'll never come close to Jung's raw power. Kang asks Jung if he's really going to marry his younger sister in the future, but Jung seems to be uninterested in thinking about it. He also reveals that he is interested in majoring in magic, which surprises Kang. It turns out that he planned this in order to hone his fighting skills further. At that moment, he is proficient in sword fighting, though his magic is lacking. Alongside that, it's impossible for him to carry around a sword in broad daylight. We then remember his underlying ambition to become infinitely stronger, so much so that he can easily defeat his mortal rival Shin-Ryong. Later on, we cut to the two arriving at Unique College. They're preparing for the entrance exam, which is rumored to have a 0.1% acceptance rate. Although, before they can settle themselves, they are swamped by a group of fangirls who were seemingly interested in them. However, it turns out the horde of girls are actually interested in Minho Oppa, a bully with drop-dead good looks. He punches Kang in the face before being knocked out himself by Park Ki-ho, the Black Tiger Sect's junior Black Tiger. He then threatens Kang and belittles him before the successor of the Golden River clan springs forward to defend his honor. However, the horde of girls crowd around him and demand an apology for Minho Oppa, the good-looking blonde on the floor. Refusing to apologize, Park Ki-ho uses magic to create an apple out of thin air and then gives it to the girls, only for it to erupt into a noxious plume of odorous gas a few seconds later. As they crumble to their knees, Kang sprints forward to attack Park, before receiving a powerful front kick to the chest. A fight between the Black Tigers and Golden River clans ensues, and Jung seems to revel in the excitement of the drama. However, Kang realizes something terrible. He's had his blood absorbed. We are drawn into a flashback, illuminating a chapter from one of Jung's past lives. He recalls a high-blood preacher, a character from his 5th life, who left a significant imprint on his memory. During this flashback, we see Jung engrossed in his training, sharpening his skills. However, he soon discovers a nefarious act. All of his training partners have been kidnapped. The villain responsible employs an absorption spell, eerily similar to the one used by Park Ki-ho, but his malicious activities are quickly halted by the timely intervention of Jung. We snap back to the present day, with Jung pondering over the memory of blood absorption. This ancient technique, steeped in dark history, is achieved by absorbing the blood of an unthinkable number of people, 10,000 to be precise. Jung grapples with the need to verify if Park Ki-ho has been using this disturbing technique. His contemplation is cut short as Kang reappears on the scene, interrupting his thoughts. Yet they both have little time to spare for discussion. They are compelled to hurry off to examinations before they can delve into the events of earlier. As the day progresses, we find ourselves in the gymnasium where tension hangs heavy in the air. Jung and Park are finally on the cusp of their anticipated face-off. Yuhara steps in, inserting herself between the two men as the atmosphere grows increasingly electric. We find ourselves in a situation where Park, the schoolyard tormentor, is poised to knee Yuhara in the face. However, before he can deliver the blow, a foul stench suddenly engulfs the room. Park finds himself in a predicament, clutching his stomach as he bolts out of the room. But before he can make it out, disaster strikes. His bowels betray him, and the gymnasium floor becomes the unfortunate recipient of his digestive distress. The exam they were partaking in is hastily called off due to the unsavory incident. Despite the abrupt end of their testing, Jung and Yuhara catch the attention of their professor. It's then that we discover an intriguing fact. Both Jung and the professor have successfully honed the skill of telepathy. It's an impressive feat, particularly for Jung given his young age and the high level of difficulty associated with mastering this ability. Following the incident, Kang learns about Park Ki-ho's embarrassing ordeal in the exam room. Considering the sequence of events, it's not hard to suspect that either Jung or Yuhara might have had a hand in Park's unfortunate predicament. As the story unfolds, we uncover another piece of information about Park Ki-ho. He is versed in the magic of blood absorption. This is a martial art that was used by a notorious rogue from Jung's past, adding another layer of intrigue to the unfolding narrative. Next, we cut to a later scene, and a young girl is hiding under a bed. A dangerous man's feet can be seen before she escapes and finds hundreds of corpses littering the hallways. She resolves it must be either the work of a devil or a dream before a horrible figure creeps up behind her and kills her brutally. Outside the exam, Jung and Kang notice a cute girl, whose name is Chae-yoon Jung, is staring at them. Then they see Park, who has shamelessly returned despite soiling his pants. Angered, he attacks Jung, who reveals his own martial arts skills. They begin another fight, this time entirely physical. However, Jung's attacks completely overpower his rival, and he beats him bloody. Park then begins swirling with energy and begins to fight back, despite the surprise of the spectators. Then he uses poison again, this time against Jung. However, using simply his own raw power, Jung expels all of the poison from his body and creates a giant plume of poisonous gas. Finally, Jung asks him the all-important question, "Where did you learn absorption?" The fight continues, and Park seemingly has no idea what he's talking about. However, a stranger appears and ends the fight. Immediately, Jung questions if this power is Shin-Ryong's. However, he dispels that idea. We meet Baek Kyung-soo, a member of the student council, who says that Jung went way too far in the fight. Jung defends himself by claiming he was poisoned, or at least that there was an attempted poisoning on him. They argue, Jung defends his actions and proceeds to kick Park in the head, and Baek continues to question and castigate him. The atmosphere then gets cold and it feels like another fight is about to ensue. However, Baek demands to learn Jung's name instead. Later on, Jung realizes that Park was using absorption without even knowing it, and we cut back to the hallway with loads of dead bodies. We learn who the culprit is, the evil man with the absorption ability. We cut to class and Jung is being watched by two cute girls. They talk to him before Yuhara interrupts and sits next to him. The two other girls call her a shameless bitch, and they storm off. Jung then asks why she is acting like that, and she responds pretty angrily. However, she cools off and they talk about magic. She then reveals her intentions to use magic to dominate the entertainment industry, and she clings to Jung despite his protests. She remembers how he saved her all those years ago, and she suggests that they should move past simply kissing. However, Chae suddenly appears and sits next to Jung too, and it seems as though a harem is growing. Using telepathy, Yuhara questions Jung on who she is, and he reveals that they are friends and nothing more. It seems both Yuhara and Chae are both jealous of each other and pine for Jung's love and approval. Meanwhile, our protagonist is distracted by a text from his sister, Soo-yeon. She wants to go and watch a film in the cinema, though her older brother has to study for class. Soo goes to the cinema with Kang's younger sister, and they watch the film and leave. While she is alone and traveling home in the dark, it seems as though something sinister is about to happen. She is attacked by a group of strange evil men, led by the blood magic preacher, though she uses her innate power to fend them all off. The men, for some reason dressed up in the outfits of the Avengers, get closer to capturing her, before we cut to our protagonist Jung bursting through a set of doors. We realize we're in a hospital, and Soo is watching over the injured and beaten bodies of her attackers. It seems as though she was defended by the Black Squad, despite Soo having no idea who they are. A huge fight breaks out between the Black Squad and the fake Avengers. Later on, Soo tells Jung that she hates him for not showing up, and that she was so scared. We cut to the next scene, and it turns out that Jung is in charge of the Black Squad, and that they are a group of mobsters and gangsters who he controls. As the mobsters disperse, we find out that the blood magic preacher is now stalking Jung, perhaps explaining why Soo was also under attack. We cut to the Hogaman Gate, led by Park Young-chan, who we met before. In the background, Park Soo-ho, who leads the unique combined strike team, vows to rip the mask off Park's face. Park Soo-ho and an unknown yet familiar partner are outside the Hogaman Gate. They discuss recent disasters, all unexplainable, linked to the Hogaman Gate, and rumored to have involved monsters from a cave. We then find out more about Park's strange accomplice. She is the twin sister of the girl killed by the strange blood preacher. We find out later that the Hogaman Gate found something dangerous in an ancient tomb, and that they can't underestimate them for any reason. Just after this, the leader of Hogaman Gate is informed that Park is lurking around their hideout. His son, Park Ki-ho, is bandaged in his bedroom. His father enters his room and reminds him that defeat and failure is not an option, ever. And this sparks an intense flashback for the teenager of his father beating strength and resilience into him. We also learn that Park Ki-ho has learned blood absorption from the blood preacher who the leader of Hogaman Gate unearthed from deep underground. It turns out that blood preacher is the dangerous being excavated from a tomb too. Park Ki-ho promises to overpower Jung using his new skills, though he is interrupted by a strange occurrence around the Hogaman Gate. A communication jammer sends a signal to all surrounding people to evacuate the area, and Jung leads his Black Squad in an attack against the gate. An epic attack begins between the Black Squad and the Hogaman Gate guards. However, it turns out that it's only Jung attacking, or at least that's what he wants them to think. After defeating an opponent, the Red Guard appear, who are allegedly the strongest armed group in the Hogaman Gate. Jung accuses the group of being human traffickers, which enrages the Red Guard. Meanwhile, Park Soo-ho and his unnamed but vengeful partner realize that the gate has been attacked, and they rush in to intervene. However, Sol-hee is electrocuted by an attack that seemed to come from nowhere. It turns out that she jumped into a protective wall, which has incapacitated her. Back to the main fight, Jung-soo faces off against the Red Guard, who plead for mercy and understanding. He reveals that the reason for his attack is that they tried to kidnap his sister, and for that, they can't be forgiven. However, before anything more can happen, Park Ki-ho appears, and this time he's equipped with new all-powerful abilities. Park Ki-ho begins slaughtering his own Red Guard, absorbing their blood power, and they are confused and terrified as to what is happening. We watch a flashback as Park as a young kid is consoled and looked after by one of the very men he's about to murder. The man, who is virtually his uncle, dies, uttering his final words, "Be careful, young master." Park Ki-ho and Jung-soo begin an almighty fight, and this time it's much more of an even contest than before. Despite this, Jung-soo still yearns to find out who taught him the blood absorption ability. Meanwhile, the Black Guard are continuing their attack on the Hogaman Gate, before Park Ki-ho's father appears and puts a stop to their attack with his sheer strength. Just then, Jung-soo's body comes flying through a screen door, and we realize he might be outmatched by Park Ki-ho entirely. Park Ki-ho confronts his father with his new power, and the leader of the Hogaman Gate is shocked to see his son like this. His father disowns him and says that from the moment he learned blood absorption, he was no longer his son. He threatens him before Jung-soo steps in and provokes them to have a real father-son battle. We then find out that the Black Squad are all immortal, and they all arise and continue their attack. The leader of Hogaman Gate launches an all-powerful barrage of attacks on Jung-soo, though the reverse villain dodges them with ease. However, as the leader gets more and more traction, Jung-soo realizes that he might be more powerful than he seems. However, Jung-soo's intangible sword is enough to defend him, and he lands a titanic attack on the leader. However, before the attacks can continue, Park Ki-ho appears behind him and tries to absorb his blood. Park Ki-ho appears to be drunk off power before something harrowing happens. He drops dead, and we realize that Jung-soo has in fact been draining his power. Being reincarnated for generations has given Jung-soo the ability to perform blood absorption, though he doesn't use it often. Enraged, the leader of Hogaman Gate attacks Jung-soo in order to avenge his son. However, it's futile. Jung-soo kills him, and in the wake of his death, a rift core appears, the source of all his power and strength. However, before anything can happen, a lilac-haired swordsman appears out of nowhere, apparently the third young master of the Habug-Pain Gate, who was invited to Hogaman Gate recently. Jung-soo gives him an ultimatum. If he swallows a pill and pledges alliance to Jung-soo, he'll be allowed to live. The Black Squad has a new member, and Jung-soo orders his men to frame Habug-Penga for the attack on Hogaman Gate. In the aftermath of the fight, the Blood Preacher steals and consumes the Rift Core, seemingly becoming much more powerful than before. In the quiet of night, two people nestle in bed, sound asleep. However, we don't know them just yet. Then enters Jung-soo, slipping in through the front door with a stealth that speaks volumes of his practiced secrecy. He reflects, reminding himself how difficult it is to keep secrets from his parents. Not far into the house, his young sister, still awake despite the deepening night, welcomes him. She doesn't waste time, her words sharp with questions, demanding to understand why she was abducted. She holds a threat over his head, ready to spill everything to their parents. In this cornered moment, Jung-soo realizes all he can do is bribe her. At first, she puts up a strong front, resisting his offer, but as time ticks away, her resolve weakens and she eventually caves in and accepts his dirty money. He teases her with more money and she, with her exceptional fighting ability, robs him of the extra cash, revealing just how far and developed her combat ability has grown recently. Amidst the sibling tussle, Jung-soo finds himself questioning why it's harder to deal with your younger sister than the actual bad guys. As the night thickens, Jung-soo's mind drifts off, stirring up a harrowing memory about someone known as Mo Young-hee. We are then ushered into a flashback, a glimpse into a different time. We see Jung-soo meeting with a benevolent stranger who extends a piece of meat towards him. Mo Young-hee then asks Jung-soo if he wants to join her on her quest to unify Murim, and with that, a budding romance is born. Soon after, the narrative switches gears. We see Mo Young-hee's vulnerable body at the hands of the evil Blood Preacher. Jung-soo, consumed by guilt, apologizes for what's about to happen next. As the night stretches on, the investigators arrive, their gaze fixed on the aftermath of Hogaman Gate. A solitary figure emerges from the shadows, taking the fall for the catastrophe, despite the truth behind Jung-soo and the Black Squad's attack. We cut to the dead of night, and we're back with the Black Squad. They are following Jung-soo's orders to scour a neighborhood. To find what? We don't know just yet. Kang is in charge of training the newbie, and he expresses his tiredness, which another squad member doesn't take kindly to. We then find out what they're actually looking for, the strongest presence in the Hogaman forest. We quickly cut to the city center, where apparently a level 3 giant cave has opened up. A public announcement informs people to evacuate immediately, and panic ensues. The Black Squad resolve that the third-class monster could be the most powerful creature in the area and decide to target it. They finally see it, a formless demon with fiery electricity forming its limbs and a rift core in the place of its midsection. It is as powerful as it looks, and it nearly kills the Black Squadron. Before the attack is suddenly over, the Blood Preacher has appeared and crushes the demon at the neck. In one single attack, it is entirely dead, with its life's energy absorbed completely. The Blood Preacher then demands to find out if they have remastered the immortal arts, and concludes that Jung-soo, their leader, is the reincarnation of the dead. Later that day, there is an announcement that the Hogaman Gate has been destroyed, alongside with the entire clan. A meeting is called between the 8 gates, and we meet Wachunman Lord Gate Leader, Kwan Young II, and the Gomsunman Gate Lord, Baek Jung-woo. We've already met Gangman Lord Gate Leader, Lee Ho-gooks, Kang's father, who has mistakenly worn fighting uniform rather than a suit. In secret, Jung-soo and Kang discuss the importance of laying low for a bit, especially after the destruction of the Hogaman Gate. and last night's disappearance of the Black Squad. Kang warns Jung-soo to be careful of the Lord Gate of Tiananmen, and then suddenly someone asks why they should be careful of their father. It's Chae-yoon-jung, the flirty girl from before. Jung-soo asks why Chae-yoon-jung is at the meeting, and her father swiftly joins the conversation. He introduces himself as the Tiananmen Lord Gate, Chase Min-chol, and his reputation certainly precedes him. Chae-yoon-jung introduces Jung-soo as the one in charge of Gangunman's law, and Kang's father swiftly comes over and offers a marriage between his son and Chae-yoon-jung. Lord Lee and Lord Chae have an argument about reputation and modesty, of which it seems Lee has none, and they bicker almost like old friends. The meeting of the lords is due to begin, and they all enter, though not before Jung-soo and Chae-yoon share a little conversation together. We cut to Park Soo-hoo, who watches the commotion in town from atop a tree. He contemplates the destruction of Hogaman Gate, and also the recent third-class demon disappearing without a trace. Then we begin the meeting of the lords, and there is clearly a certain tension among the gang leaders. Most of the anger is pointed at Habit Kang, the group framed for the destruction of Hogaman Gate. The group resolves, perhaps mistakenly, that the conflict arose as part of a plot to pit Korea against the Chinese government. Eventually, the fingers start to get pointed at the Lord Gate Gangman, Lee Ho-juk, and he deflects them with an arrogant ease. Eventually, the meeting comes to a close, and Jung-soo and Chae-yoon are outside talking again. She tells him she'll bring a cake to class in the morning, though he is interrupted by thoughts of his missing Black Squadrons. Suddenly, Secretary Kim gives him a phone call, revealing that he's found something important. The next scene, we see Jung-soo standing over the scene of the Black Squad's last battle, a giant crater in the middle of the forest. He resolves it's not a battleground, but a slaughterhouse. Eventually, much to the shock of both Kim and Jung-soo, they find the mummified corpses of the Black Squad, with their life and blood absorbed entirely from them. Rising as if from the dead, the entire Black Squad finds themselves once again on their feet, though their movements are tinged with visible weakness. We see them animated to life once again, reminded of their mysterious powers that have somehow granted them immortality. Perhaps the Blood Preacher is not as powerful as we once thought. In the wake of their resurrection, Jung-soo makes a peculiar request to Kang. He asks him to draw a picture of the one responsible for their recent attack. Through the surprisingly poor quality drawing, Jung manages to identify his enemy, bringing a familiar face back into his memory. The narrative then shifts abruptly, taking us into a chilling flashback. It's a brutal reminder of Mo Young-hee's violent end, a horrendous act committed by the fearsome Seo Moon-il, also known as the Blood Preacher. Seeking to understand Seo Moon's relentless pursuit, Jung-soo poses a question. Why is the Blood Preacher after him? The scene then transitions abruptly to the Blood Preacher himself, who is seen making a hasty escape from the unique combined strike team. Instantly, he drains their life force, rendering them all dead in an instant. We then cross paths with a new character, Park Han-dong. He is the only survivor and now the leader of the unique Group 12. In an interaction with the Blood Preacher, who seems to be entirely oblivious to the existing hierarchical dynamics within the Unique's ranks, Park Han-dong probes for answers. The confrontation is underwhelming, and Park Han-dong is all but dead. However, just when we believe Park Han-dong has met his end, he demonstrates a powerful special ability. He reconstitutes himself behind Seo Moon and pierces his torso with his weapon. Believing he has finally gained the upper hand, Park Han-dong taunts the Blood Preacher. That is, until he uses his special ability and reconstitutes himself behind Seo Moon. Later, we find out that it's the Blood Preacher who first conquered Murim, and he kills a unique leader. After this, we meet Jin Gang-baek, and finally putting a name to the face, we remember that he is the one who claimed responsibility for the attack on Hogaman Gate. The narrative swiftly propels us into the throes of a monumental aerial clash. A spectral figure, a Grim Reaper with a head ablaze like a fiery red orb, is seen locked in a fierce combat with a colossal dragon. The Grim Reaper emerges victorious, but this spectacle is abruptly revealed to be nothing more than a dream. Or could it possibly be a cryptic vision from a past life? Out of nowhere, Jung-soo is seen springing into action, abruptly leaping from the window of his penthouse without a word of explanation. He darts across the roads, propelled by some unseen urgency. Eventually, he finds himself back at the location of the earlier fight. As he surveys the scene, a look tinged with dread washes over his face. Meanwhile, we learn of the fate of the Hogaman Gate and the need for a new leader. We then cut to the Gangman Gate, where a private meeting is happening. The audience is brought into a clandestine gathering at Gangman Gate. Lee Ho-juk, who we've come to know as more of a warrior than a politician, appears visibly strained from the incessant meetings. His discomfort serves as a stark reminder that his forte lies in combat and power, not the intricacy bureaucracy. Around him, the newly empowered individuals discuss their recent rise to prominence. The destruction of Hogaman Gate has left Gangman Gate with the responsibility of overseeing their territories. However, Secretary Kim demands that the bureaucrats all shut up, including Lee Ho-juk. Caught off his guard, the Gate Lord is at a loss for words. Secretary Kim doesn't hold back his apprehensions about taking on the monumental task of safeguarding another gate. It then turns out that it's going to be way too much work for Kim to do, and he even worries that Lee has signed an agreement to fight the ones who destroyed the Hogaman Gate. In light of these complexities, they consider seeking Jung-soo's assistance. However, recent events, specifically the apparent obliteration of the Black Squad and the resurgence of the Blood Preacher, seem to have taken a toll on Jung-soo. We then cut to him resting at a cafe before he appears to turn insane with rage. He maniacally laughs at the return of Jin Gang-baek and reveals that So Moon-il and Jin Gang had a fight. The fight from his dreams. However, he scolds himself for missing the incarnation of two enemies from his distant past. Then suddenly two Habagpanga guards attack Jung-soo for his appearance there. Before a lilac-haired familiar face appears, Pang Do-chan. In an abrupt turn of events, Sung-hoo makes a hasty retreat. As the dust settles following the immediate crisis, he finds himself wrestling with a newfound understanding. Their plan revolves around wielding Korea as a formidable weapon, a chess piece in the high-stakes game of the Chinese conflict. Finding sanctuary on the secluded rooftop he'd chosen as his hideaway, Jung-soo is not alone for long. Jin Gang-baek materializes, breaking the silence of the afternoon. He throws a question into the quiet air, asking Jung-soo if he recognizes him, a challenge lurking behind his words. But before Jung-soo has a moment to compose a response, Jin Gang makes a dramatic exit. He throws a fiery blaze onto the rooftop floor before disappearing into the daylight. His visit, it seems, was merely to taunt our protagonist. In the midst of this chaotic scene, Pang Do, from a distance, is observing the commotion while sipping his tea, entirely unaffected. Fast forward to a later scene set at the imposing Tiananmen Gate. Pang Do makes his entrance, striding in with a stoic air. He dismisses the Lord of Tiananmen's Gate's warm welcome, his focus unwavering. In a surprising turn, he seizes control of the meeting, an air of egoism evident in his demeanor. With a firm voice, he lays claim to the lead role in the investigation of the Hogaman Gate disaster. His audacious declaration stirs the room, sparking a wave of anger among the other leaders. His hand cracks down onto the table in a show of bravado. However, Lee Ho-juk remains unimpressed, unfazed by the young man's theatrics. Lee Ho-juk issues a threat to Pang Do, a stern warning echoing in the room. The other Lord Gate leaders chime in, cautioning him against creating a conflict. They make it clear that they won't hesitate to intervene if necessary. Despite the tension, the situation diffuses, and Pang Do emerges as the sole authority in charge of the investigation. The scene transitions to Jung-soo, lost in thoughts of Pang Do. His quiet contemplation is interrupted by the arrival of Chae Yoon-jung. She questions him about his sudden disappearance the other day. She also voices her concern about his continued absence from school. Unbeknownst to them, Chae Yoon's Lord Gate father is stealthily observing their interaction from a distance. He unveils that he possesses extensive knowledge about Jung-soo, including the extent of his hidden power. As the reality sinks in, he acknowledges that a direct confrontation with Hapanganga is not feasible. However, he recognizes the necessity to disrupt Gumgangman's gate's momentum to prevent the outbreak of war. It becomes apparent that Jung-soo's downfall will play a pivotal role in this strategy. We find ourselves once again outside the imposing structure of the Tiananmen Gate. Here, Lee Ho-guk is engaged in conversation with Kang, inquiring about Jung-soo's whereabouts. Kang, a loyal and longtime friend of Jung-soo, expresses his concern. He confesses that his friend hasn't been himself lately and theories that an adversary might be tormenting and defeating him. However, Jung-soo typically is not led on to the severity of the circumstances. As they exchange words, a great plume of fire shoots up into the sky, interrupting their conversation. The source of this fiery spectacle is none other than Ju-myung and Jun-soo, locked in combat before the eyes of Chae-yoon. Ju-myung is allegedly Chae's brother. The scorching summer heat fuels their battle, igniting into towering flames. This spectacle does not go unnoticed. The leaders of the gates witness this unfolding event. It stirs suspicion, leading them to contemplate whether this could potentially spark off tensions between Tiananmen and Gumgangman gates. Yet the Lord of Tiananmen stops in to calm the rising apprehension. He reassures those worried, stating that the ongoing brawl is merely a personal dispute and emphatically denying any reflection on the gates themselves. The fight continues to escalate, growing more intense and emotional with each passing moment. Notably, even Jung-soo appears to be feeling the strain, beads of sweat trickling down his face. But then Chae-yoon intervenes. She steps in between her brother and the man who has captured her attention. She confronts her brother, asserting that he is overdoing it. As this unfolds, we're drawn into a flashback of a shared past. In this memory, Chae and Ju-myung are just children, aged 9 and 10 respectively. A certain warmth and fondness is evident between them. Ju-myung extends a small gift towards Chae, only for the Lord Tiananmen to snatch it away. A revelation then surfaces. Ju-myung isn't really her brother, but a stranger inspiring to join the Chloride Squad. The Lord rebukes the 10-year-old Ju-myung, publicly shaming him. Later that night, a compassionate member of the Chloride Squad offers him consolation. He advises Ju-myung that the path to Chae's heart is through strength. If he manages to become the strongest, he can win her over. This advice triggers a montage of rigorous training that spans over several years. Ju-myung is determined, resolute in his quest to become the strongest and stop at nothing to achieve this. We're brought back to the present, where Ju-myung's anger is palpable. He is seething at the fact that his pseudo-sister has chosen Jung-soo over him. The confrontation escalates to the point where Chae finds herself battling against Ju-myung. She employs her immense power, launching him backwards. Eventually, Jung-soo steps back into the fray, declaring his intention to fight in earnest now. Ju-myung retaliates by throwing a paralyzing punch at him. The outcome of this punch, and indeed the fight, remains unknown, leaving us in suspense about what's to happen next. As the fight teeters at its zenith, Jung-soo finds himself confronted with questions about Ju-myung's motives. He probes Ju-myung, asking him if his actions are fueled by love or something else. He points out the violence and coercion that have seeped into their conflict, just as Chae steps forward in what everyone hopes will be her final intervention. She declares that what Ju-myung assumes as love is nothing but his own one-sided feelings. She asserts that she never wished for him to resort to these actions. Despite Jung-soo's protests, she even insists that he should leave the scene. However, Ju-myung, reeling from this revelation, concludes that he has no choice but to eliminate everyone involved. Concurrently, the Lord Tiananmen announces that the fight has to persist. He postulates that it could result in Jung-soo's death and potentially trigger the collapse of the Gumgangman Gate. Among the bystanders are Lee Ho-guk and Kang, who observe the unfolding drama with a sense of dread. They are acutely aware that Jung-soo's life hangs in the balance. In a pivotal moment, Jung-soo delivers a potent attack on his adversary. The raw intensity of this strike stirs a deeply buried memory in Ju-myung. We are privy to a flashback of Jung-Young's past, where he forms a close bond with a kind man who possesses a unique power. They journey together through their academy days. However, their friendship culminates in a tragic conclusion. Just when they are on the brink of graduation, Jung-Young betrays his confidant, murdering him to seize his special power. Despite the betrayal and the pain of his impending death, his friend's parting words to Jung-Young are an encouragement to strive to be the strongest, a haunting sentiment given the circumstances of his demise. As we return to the scene of the struggle, Jung-soo and Jung-Young are engrossed in their intense battle. With a confident smirk, Jung-soo declares that Jung-Young's offensive moves have lost their potency. The effects of this are plainly visible in the harsh manner Jung-soo counterattacks, each blow landing with a thud that echoes his superiority. In a twist of events, it is revealed that Jung-soo didn't come to the fight unprepared. He had received some tactical advice from Chae-yoon, an unexpected move that leaves Jung-young wrestling with the feelings of betrayal, his heart aching from the betrayal. The plot thickens when it comes to light that Chae-yoon had managed to piece together the truth. She discovered that Jung-young had appropriated a certain power from his deceased comrade. Accepting the reality of his actions, the killer finally concedes his identity as a reincarnation of malevolence, a devil in human form. Unfazed, he declares his intention to embrace this darkness, living as the devil he's become. Jung-young then reveals his grand plan. He intends to eliminate Jung-soo. He believes that this will secure his place in the memory of the Lords of the Gates and etch his name in history, establishing his legacy. Yet Jin-sung is not one to be beaten down without a fight. Defiant, he delivers a powerful punch to the face of his evil adversary, an action that symbolizes his unyielding spirit. The scene then transitions to Pang-do, found once again leisurely sipping his tea amidst the Hapong-panga guardsmen. They engage in a conversation about the ongoing conflict between Jung-soo and Jung-young, their words laced with humor over the childish nature of the feud. The idea of assassinating Jung-soo is floated by the guards, but Pang-do appears to harbor a different objective. He contemplates allying with Jung-soo, a decision that could potentially ignite a civil war among the renowned gates. In another part of the story, the leader of the Tiananmen Gate is livid at his soldiers' inability to overcome Jung-soo. His rage is so palpable that he labels him a disgrace and demands his execution. The news of this causes Chae to weep, her heart heavy with sorrow. But when the guard arrives to carry out the order, the bed is empty. Like a fleeting gust of wind, he had vanished. Meanwhile, back at Gangman Gate, there's a flurry of activity. Secretary Kim, out of breath, bursts into Lee Ho-jug's office, where a conversation with Jung-soo is taking place. He expresses his anger over Jung-soo's audacity to insult the Tiananmen Gate, voicing concerns about the potential backlash it could incite. Jung-soo, over the calm in the storm, tries to assuage their worries. He advises them to gear up and brace themselves for any possible fallout that may arise from the situation. We're now watching a stranger get beaten up at school, and we learn that he is called Jung-gi. His bullies are disgusted that someone of his caliber is at the same school as them, and they let him know through punches and kicks. They go as far as to convey their hatred as not unfounded. It roots from an abnormal ability Jung-gi possesses, an ability we are yet to discover. Adding insult to injury, they steal his phone, rummaging through his gallery, where they stumble upon photographs of Jung-gi's younger sibling, remarking on her beauty. The tormentors then escalate their cruelty, threatening to exploit Jung-gi with damaging rumors if he doesn't run naked through the school. But just as they're about to coerce him further, an enchantingly beautiful girl steps into the picture. She is Yuhara, a familiar face from Kang and Jun-soon's younger years. Upon seeing her, the bullies can't help but be drawn to her. She, however, deals with them sternly, landing a powerful kick on one, sending him crashing against a wall. A bully tries to hold her back from behind, but she expertly dodges his grip and frees herself. She reveals that she has spent her entire life training hard, ensuring she never lagged behind her peers, particularly the male ones. Yuhara demands an apology from the bullies. However, the scoundrels refuse, which prompts her to confront them with all her might. But just as it appears the bullies might overpower her, another character enters the scene, bringing a new twist. A new face emerges, Jung-woo, the Zhang son of the Il-woo group, 8th in the business order. Kang-hyun, an unfamiliar face to Yuhara, yet still manages to leave her visibly impressed, given his seniority in the unique school setting. Fearing Kang-hyun's influential position, the bullies start apologizing profusely. Following this, Kang-hyun requests a private audience with Yuhara, a proposition that leaves her somewhat surprised. We then shift focus back to Jung-soo, who is patiently waiting for Yuhara. It becomes evident that the academic stress is starting to weigh on him. He appears to be grappling with many problems and makes a resolution to improve his magic skills to vanquish his foes. Later, Jung-soo is seen engaging in a conversation with a member of his Black Squad, who shares an intriguing piece of information with him. Jin-gang Baek is allegedly a member of the Unique Union. Furthermore, the squad member informs Jung-soo about Yuhara's recent outing with a man, Kang-hyun. He also provides an update on his investigation regarding Seo Moon-il, stating that he found no evidence of disappearance from the specific day of the battle. As we progress in the story, a shockingly unexpected plot twist emerges. Kang-hyun proposes to Yuhara, leaving us in sheer disbelief. In a state of shock at the sudden proposal, she instinctively rises from her seat, her face a mixture of surprise and disbelief. Kang-hyun, reading her expression, hastens to explain his reasoning. The whole situation is tied up in the complex web of business politics between Daehan Korea and the Il-woo group. They are in desperate need of an alliance. Yuhara, however, is not in the mood to hear any of it. She angrily leaves the room, leaving Kang-hyun behind, perplexed. After this fiasco, she arranges to meet with Jung-soo. He's understandably suspicious of her recent behavior. When she remains silent about her meeting with Kang-hyun, it only heightens his unease. In spite of it all, she attempts to maintain the facade of normality. Continuing on with her usual romantic escapades, she suddenly reveals to him that she's been proposed to. In an unexpected turn, she tries to introduce Jung-soo to her father as her boyfriend. Her hope? To guide them towards a path of marriage. We are then introduced to the chairman of the Daehan group, Yoo Man-chul, who also happens to be Yuhara's grandfather. In a twist of coincidences, he is currently engaged in a meeting with Ha-yoon-chul, Jung-soo's father and the president of Hanyung Industrial Company. Ha-yoon is on a quest to secure investment from Yoo-man, but the elderly chairman seems hesitant for reasons unknown. Following the meeting, Ha-yoon's stress is evident. His encounter with this business tycoon has clearly taken a toll. As he walks away from the meeting, his phone rings. The voice on the other end of the phone line reveals that he wants to invest in his company. Subsequently, we see Kang-hyun engrossed in research about Jung-soo's recent actions. Suddenly, a familiar face appears, Pang-do. The dynamics between these two suggest a history. They seem to share a past filled with jest and rivalry. Their banter quickly escalates and almost turns violent before they manage to calm down and address each other more professionally. It soon becomes clear that the Hapapanga are pressuring the Il-woo group, forcing them to choose a side, ally with them or face total destruction. As Pang-do makes his exit, he leaves Kang-hyun with a warning: never to underestimate Jung-soo, a piece of advice that would serve everyone well. In a surprising revelation towards the end, we discover something quite sinister. The man who called to invest in Ha-yoon's business was none other than Kang-hyun. We then cut to a factory worker who is concerned with his boss's recent financial activities, cautious that he's spending too much. We see that it's Ha-yoon, and that they are not indebted to the Il-woo group for their investment and have to make things work no matter what. It even turns out that Ha-yoon has borrowed vast amounts of money from the bank to produce goods. It's in the next second that Ha-yoon realizes he's made a huge mistake, as the Il-woo group suddenly announce they're canceling all production in hyperfactories. Next, we see Ha-yoon groveling at Kang-yoon's feet, and the businessman seems to act coy, as though he doesn't owe Ha-yoon anything. He gives him an ultimatum: hand over all of the hyperfactory source technology and he won't clamp down on him. Shocked, Ha-yoon doesn't know what to say or do. Next, Pang-do is scheming and finds Kang-yoon's recent manipulation of Jung-soo's family quite funny. He then thinks again about the destruction of Hogaman Gate and how it must have been a single man with incredible control and power. They conspire that it was Park Young-chan, one of the more powerful gate leaders. However, they quickly realize that this was probably a thought that spanned from misdirection, and they should instead be looking at who had the most to gain from the destruction of the gate, Gumgangman Gate. They continue investigating and realize that while Lee Ho-gyuk is certainly powerful, he doesn't have the strength to annihilate an entire gate. The remaining candidate that Pengdo considers is Jung-soo, but he doesn't believe him powerful enough. He realizes that it has to be someone who was a master of absolute, which is not an easy feat at all. Later on, Kang-chan and Jun-soo are hanging out after school, and Kang asks about the trouble that Kang Hyun-woo made with him. However, our protagonist isn't really in the mood to talk, though Kang-chan is shocked to find out that Jung-soo is planning to marry Horea. Jung-soo reminds him that he's way too young to get married and not to worry about that particular possibility. Hwang then tells Jung-soo about the immense power and strength that the successor to the Il-woo group possesses, both financial and physical. However, Soo-yoon, Kang's younger sister, suddenly arrives and reveals that something has happened to Lee Ho-gyuk. Meanwhile, at Ha-yoon's factory, he's telling his workers that the company is about to go into administration before someone reveals that a mystery investor has decided to pick up the company. Ha-yoon is explaining his business product to a mysterious figure in the shadows, and the red eyes beaming from the darkness certainly looks familiar. Then we find out something incredible. It's Jung-soo. We then cut to the Il-woo group, who are discussing their upcoming takeover of the Hanyang Industries and the potential financial gain that they're going to be getting. Kang Hyun is reveling in the possibility that he's going to be able to use this to establish himself in the Il-woo group even more, before a clerk comes in with breaking news. Hanyang Industries has found a new investor. Later on, we cut to Ha-yoon and Jung-soo heading home together, and his father asks his son to pinch him on the cheek, not quite able to believe that his son is going to be the investor who will save his company. Jung-soo reveals that he was carefully investing his wages from the Gumgangman gang, and that it had grown to huge sums of money recently. However, the secret to his investments were not to be disclosed, and that if his father asked, he would withdraw his investment. It's a secret, especially to Mom, Jung-soo says. They head in for a special dinner, and Pang-do is watching them from his car. He questions the source of the investment and figures that Jung-soo's recent closeness to Yuhara and the Daehan group may be a part of the puzzle. We suddenly cut to Yuhara, who is walking up a dark set of stairs at night. A strange man is tailing her, and another man confronts her with a weapon. With a brutal kick to the head, she knocks him out before the director shouts, "Cut." We are relieved to realize that she was simply filming a scene on film rather than actually being attacked. She apologizes to the actor, and they all finish filming for the day. Then, Yuhara is clearly shocked to see something or someone. Jung-soo, dressed in dashing attire and holding a bag of gifts, has arrived in a flashy red car to see his girlfriend. It seems as though they're heading over to meet Yuhara's mom and dad, and it seems to be causing unease between the two of them. However, Jung-soo's confidence is apparent. Eventually, they arrive, and Yuhara is shocked to find that her grandfather is at the house too. He asks if Yuhara loves him anymore, perhaps playfully, and then Jung-soo introduces himself. Immediately, the old man, clearly exerting a sense of superiority, mocks Jung-soo for being a ruined child and forbids him from marrying Yuhara, though Jung-soo reminds him of the Daehan's group's simpering intelligence, and that he is in fact the mysterious investor who saved Hanyang Industries from the Il-woo group. Suspicious of a 17-year-old boy who can invest billions of dollars, he calls his guards on Jung-soo, though our cool protagonist doesn't seem really fazed. The guards have their sabers at Jung-soo's throat, stopping just shy of drawing blood, while Haraya's panicked cries echo in the air from them to cease. Suddenly, they vanish as if swallowed by the shadows. Jung-soo, unflustered by this display, starts to question. He wonders aloud if the old man has misconceptions, thinking he borrowed money from Haraya. With an air of dignity, Jung-soo insists he's not in such dire straits as to need to beg. The old man issues him a challenge in response to show him proof of his financial standing. Only then, he declares, will he consider endorsing their budding relationship. Jung-soo, undeterred by their request, exudes an aura of self-righteousness. He pulls out a small box and places it on the table. The leader of the Daein group, curious, opens it. Inside, he finds a Class 7 cave core, a sight that takes his breath away. He realizes with a start that he's never laid eyes on an item of such immense worth before. His curiosity piqued, he pushes for more information, demanding to know the true identity of Jung-soo. However, Jung-soo deflects this, saying that the mastery is part of the game. This doesn't set well with the old man. He makes it clear that he will not simply hand his granddaughter over to Jung-soo, emphasizing that Haraya has already been pledged to another family, Kang-hyung, to be specific. A distraught Haraya voices her disagreement, screaming that she has no desire to be with Kang-hyung. But the old man's skepticism proves too strong to be silenced. Acting on this suspicion, he orders his guards to launch an attack on the 17-year-old Jung-soo. In response, Jung-soo, burning with rage, fights off the guards. The first two class uniques, formidable in their own right, find themselves outmatched, faring far worse than they should have. This display of strength forces the old man to reassess his information on the boy, realizing that he was horribly misinformed. He also realizes that Jung-soo knew he would be present, which is why he brought the Class 7 cave core as a show of preparedness for their eventual encounter. After the heated confrontation, the grandfather turns to Haraya, questioning if she is prepared to spend her life with a man as formidable as Jung-soo. She resolutely confirms her choice, stating that she has already picked Jung-soo. Finally, the old man concedes, acknowledging their relationship and understanding that his intervention is futile. Then, Jung-soo asks to move on to the next step, whatever that may be. As the day advances, we shift to Kang-hyung, who is driving through the city on his way to meet his father. His father punishes him severely for the marriage to Haraya that fell through, pointing out that the incident has made a laughingstock of the Il-woo group. In a fit of fury, he swears to enact revenge on Jung-soo, thereby joining the growing list of enemies seeking our hero's downfall. Meanwhile, we transition to an opulent mansion. The evidence of a recent massive skirmish still evident. We witness a peculiar man compelling a dying man to watch a video, instructing him to reflect on his actions. The man is killed, and the scene shifts to a phone call with an enigmatic individual. The name of the man is revealed as Park Woo-sik, a guild union assassin of rank 5, who has just accepted a new assignment, an assassination. A bit later in the day, Jung-soo makes his way back home, only to discover an unusual quietness. His house is completely empty. There's a moment of peculiarity, he muses, before he is swiftly and unexpectedly ambushed by a series of subtle, almost undetectable attacks. With a composed demeanor, he advises, ensuring that his voice carries through the stillness, try to silence your footsteps as much as possible, directing the advice to his young sister. His sister responds, stating that she's already toned down her steps to the quietest possible level. She points out that the real problem lies with his remarkably acute hearing abilities. Despite hovering in midair, he still catches the faint sound of her movements. She playfully complains, asking why he can't just let her triumph over him just this once. Jung-soo retorts, saying that she needs to commit more to practice if she wishes to achieve that. Feeling a tad irritated, she compares Jung-soo to the brothers of her friends. They, unlike Jung-soo, let their sisters win from time to time. Moreover, her friends' brothers even go the extra mile by presenting them with pocket money and little gifts, a practice Jung-soo finds downright absurd. Eventually, their parents return home, and the family begins to prepare for dinner. However, during their meal, his father discreetly shares some important news with Jung-soo. He reveals that the Daein group has plans to acquire a significant number of hyperfactories. It's something that Ha-yoon feels obligated to inform his son about. Of course, Jung-soo isn't keen on discussing business or investor matters within their home, wanting to keep such information hidden from his mom. They conclude their conversation and continue with their meal. As the night stretches on, Jung-soo decides to pay a visit to Yuhara, who's been working late, filming well into the late hours. Her parents express initial worry about his late outing, but soon they are reminded that their son is often more responsible than his young age suggests. While making his way to Yuhara, Jung-soo becomes aware of a sinister presence. An ominous figure, an assassin, is stealthily tracking him. The assassin reassures himself that his assignment, contracted by the Il-woo group to eliminate a mere 17-year-old, should be a walk in the park. Little does he know, he's about to have to rethink everything he believes about his own strength. Jung-soo, well aware of his pursuit, vanishes into the darkness of night, drawing the assassin and his team into a dense forest. He confronts them, asking for their identities. They remain evasive, refusing to respond honestly. As we've seen before, the assassin has a cruel habit of showing his targets a video from the individual who ordered the assassination. Jung-soo is shown a video of Kang-hyung, expressing his regrets for the forthcoming events. A tense atmosphere heralds the onset of a brawl. But as we've repeatedly observed, Jung-soo's immense power makes him a formidable opponent, not easily overpowered by mere assassins. His retaliations are fierce and potent, quickly overwhelming the assassins. His signature attack, the sky-breaking meteor, is narrowly evaded by the assassin, but only just. Jung-soo continues to shake the ground beneath them, mocking the assassin for daring to challenge him. The assassin attempts his last resort, his trump card, but it is futile. Jung-soo swiftly grabs him by the neck, seemingly on the verge of ending the assassin's life. Suddenly, there's a flicker of fear in the assassin's eye. He sees a veteran killer in front of him, not a 17-year-old student, and realizes he's in deep trouble. The fear isn't misplaced. In a heartbeat, Jung-soo makes a swift, brutal slash across his neck. As the night's violent episode fades, Jung-soo strolls away. But he's not alone. More figures emerge from the shadows. Assassins, he thinks, or that's what they seem to be. They question him about Park Woo-sik, a name that stirs recent memories, revealing their allegiance to the Darkness Guild, a formidable entity, second only to the 8 guilds. They confirm that Park Woo was the unfortunate soul he just dispatched. Their warning is clear and stark. They are not to be mistaken for the likes of Park Woo. The power scale, it seems, is vastly different. The tension escalates as another battle is about to erupt between Jung-soo and the fresh wave of assassins. At the same time, Kang-hyung, having arrived at the location of Haraya's film set, clutches a bouquet of flowers. His intent is to comfort her over the supposed demise of Jung-soo. However, the plot takes a sudden twist. Just as the heir of Il-woo group is about to set his scheme in motion, Jung-soo appears. Surprisingly, he seems untouched by the brief encounter with the assassins. With a sneer, he taunts Kang-hyung about his unsuccessful attempts to end his life. The appearance of Haraya only intensifies the mockery. Jung-soo's ridicule of the affluent youngster in her presence causes Kang-hyung to storm off, feeling demeaned and furious. Kang-hyung's retreat ends with a frustrated slam of the roses on the floor. Just then, his phone rings, a hidden number. The conversation revolves around the failed assassination, and it quickly becomes clear that another assassin is on the other end of the line. This one, however, is behind the now-deceased assassin sent after Jung-soo. The mystery caller is revealed, Darkness Guildmaster Choi Kyung-won. Their heated phone argument underlies the fact that Kang-hyung is seriously outmatched in this game. The Guildmaster discloses that the Il-woo group and his guild are trying to foster a peaceful coexistence. Therefore, Kang-hyung's recklessness is a significant problem. If his father gets wind of this, he's as good as dead. From a distance, Jung-soo quietly observes, fully aware that Kang-hyung's downfall is inevitable. But little does he know about the ongoing brutal beating of Kang-chan, the son of Lee Ho-guk and Jung-soo's best friend, at the hands of Pang-do. We now take a sharp turn in the narrative. The story sweeps back in time to explore the history of the Darkness Guild. It becomes clear why its timeline is surprisingly shorter than that of the Seven Gates. The tale goes that the Darkness Guild was brought into existence after a curious incident. A once dormant cave was accidentally opened, letting loose a horde of terrifying monsters into the unsuspecting country. The citizens were helpless, but there was a beacon of hope. The Darkness Guilds were the only ones who had the skills, the bravery, and the strength to stand against these monsters, to defeat them, to protect their homeland. Back in the present day, Kang Hyung is caught in a whirlpool of worry. He's breaking out in cold sweat over the impending severance of ties between the Darkness Guild and the Il-woo group. He's aware that such a decision could lead to his inevitable death, though it's the only way forward he can see. In order to survive, he needs to establish beyond a shadow of a doubt that he has no association with the notorious Hapug Panga, and more importantly, with Pang Do-chan. He's been toying with the idea of reaching out to Pang Do, seeking his assistance. However, this could potentially backfire, drawing him further into incrimination. While Kang Hyung is deep in thought, holed up in his office, an aide enters unannounced. She tries to hand him a report detailing the latest business developments, but the timing is terrible. Enraged, he throws a book at her, a display of his uncontrolled anger and spoiled brat personality. She flees the scene, but not before dropping a piece of vital information that the sales of Hyper Factory are skyrocketing, and the Il-woo group might have to admit defeat to them if they can't secure their own electronics. Fueled by this information, he makes up his mind. He would bring down the mask of Jung-soo. He would expose him no matter what. Time moves forward. The scene shifts to Gumgangman Gate, where Jung-soo makes an appearance but finds Kang Chong conspicuously absent. It's odd. Someone mentions that his phone has been unreachable since the previous day. Unexpected. As this mystery unfolds, Jung-soo is caught off guard. Lee Ho-juk launches a sudden attack on him. Lee is livid, unable to accept the fact that Jung-soo might be considering marrying Yuhara. He feels a deep sense of betrayal, questioning Jung-soo's lack of regard for his own daughter's betrothal situation. Lee makes it clear that he is strongly opposed to Jung-soo's possible union with Yuhara. But soon, his fiery anger starts to cool down a bit, particularly when Jung-soo firmly reminds him that it is his life and his choice to make, and that Lee Ho-juk is not his father. They move on to discuss the recent strange disappearance of Kang Chan. Lee is rather confident that his son can take care of himself even in the most challenging situations. Nevertheless, he instructs Jung-soo to embark on a search for Kang Chan. As Jung-soo roams the town, he stumbles upon a likely location, but doesn't find who he's looking for. Instead, he encounters Kang Hyung, and there are hundreds of cameras pointed at him, recording his every move. Could this be the moment that his secret weapon is exposed? The tense face-off between him and Kang Hyung is approaching a crucial point in the story. The successor to the Il-woo group throne, Kang Hyung, says it's an apology. He felt he had underestimated Jung-soo and was taken aback when Jung-soo managed to defeat both Park-woo and the Darkness Guild fighters. He admits this openly. His way of apologizing for underestimating his opponent? A fight. Jung-soo questions if Kang Hyung is going to target his family again in a cowardly attack. However, the response from Kang Hyung is crystal clear. With his metal manipulation powers, he attacks. Jung-soo now finds himself in a battle with one of the most elite magic users in the country, the top 0.01%, in fact. Despite the challenge, Jung-soo's face reveals nothing but calm. If anything, it seems like he's enjoying the situation. But this time, it might be different. Kang Hyung just might be a formidable opponent after all. After being warned not to take Kang Hyung's metal manipulation skills lightly, Jung-soo understands the severity of the situation. An unexpected interruption occurs, a phone call. The caller is Kang Chan, currently a hostage under Pang Do, who is also watching the ongoing fight. The only way out is for Jung-soo to reach Kang Chong before Pang Do decides to execute the heir to the Gumgangman Gate. Jung-soo gives a stern warning to Pang Do. You'll regret harming Kang Chan. It appears that an intense showdown between the factions is about to take place. Suddenly, Pang Do reveals a chilling theory. The Gumgangman Gate, he claims, was responsible for destroying Hogaman. He also says that they kidnapped his younger brother, Pang Sa. In addition to this shocking revelation, he discloses that the leaders of the other gates are all moving towards Gumgangman Gate. It's inevitable that something catastrophic is about to happen, and it looks as though Jung-soo is going to be culpable for the ensuing division. Still, for the moment, Jung-soo can do little more than focus on defeating Kang-hyung. Next, the student at school who was previously being bullied is being scolded by teachers. They are furious that Kang-hyung is bullying another student in the studio, and they need to unlock the doors. It seems as though this student's ability, Unlock, is the only thing that can help the situation. Eventually, despite the previous issues that he was being bullied for, the young kid uses his ability. Inside, Jung-soo is throwing lethal kicks at Kang-hyung, who responds with a lack of real strength. However, the bullied kid enters and photographs Kang-hyung and Jung-soo fighting. He runs away, and Kang-hyung, concerned about his reputation, fails to remember that he's in the middle of a fight to the death with Jung-soo. He uses an incredibly powerful attack, Aegis of the Titanium Alloy, though it's not as powerful as he thinks. Meanwhile, the Darkness Guild leader finally accepts that Jung-soo is powerful enough to have defeated his assassins, and it seems as though he could be gearing up to join the fight soon. He even theorizes that the Gumgangman Gate encouraged him to mess with the Darkness Guild, perhaps enhancing the troubles that Lee Ho-juk's gate is going to have to face in the future. Meanwhile, back at the Gumgangman Gate, they prepare for battle, knowing that the leaders of the 6 other gates are soon to arrive, each of Lee Ho-guk's guardsmen ready for battle. Finally, Lee Ho-guk reveals his true strength as he rips off his t-shirt, showing off his monstrous body. However, Secretary Kim scolds him, laughing in the face of battle. Back at the TV studio, Kang-hyun is flat on the floor. Jung-soo attempts to leave. However, he finds that he has steel alloy handcuffs covering his hands. After being told that he won't leave alive, Jung-soo prepares for another almighty attack from his opponent, and despite having seen our reverse villain hero escape from these situations with ease before, it seems that he's finally been bested. Taunting Jung-soo, we cut back to the attacked Gumgangman Gate. Lord Lee Ho-guk faces off against them all, towering over his opponents, ready to crush each of them with ease. Kim asks why they've appeared at Gumgangman Gate, and they reveal that there have been reports that the gate is responsible for the destruction of hogaman. The secretary then asks what evidence there is, and Pang-do appears with Kang-chan's limp body behind him. Furious of the state that his son is in, Lee Ho-guk fires a devastating thunderous attack into the air. The gate leaders plead for him to stop, and he unleashes the attack on Pang-do. The attack is countered by the Hapug Panga successor with ease. He throws back the Lord Gate of Gumgangman, and the Lord Gate elders are suddenly wary of Pang-do. However, Lee Ho-guk quickly rises from the attack and is impressed at the Hapug Panga attack. He claims that he's the strongest man in the world and that nobody can overpower him physically. However, Secretary Kim advises him against fighting and seeks diplomacy, which we've seen is not Lee Ho-guk's forte. Kim steps forward and accuses the gate leaders of attacking the gate without sufficient evidence and demands evidence before further action is taken. They claim that all they have to go off is Pang-do's word, which isn't exactly reliable as we know. Meanwhile, Lee Ho-guk's rage continues bubbling over, and he summons the Gungang army. Then Pang-do reveals something incriminating. A survivor from the original massacre, his little brother Pang-sa. Previously brainwashed and conscripted to the Black Squad, the feeble boy represents condemning evidence. The man responsible for slaughtering the Gumgangman Gate is Choi Kyung-hwan, the master of the Darkness Guild. Meanwhile, back at the TV studio, Kang-hyung suddenly realizes that his plan has been foiled and that Jung-soo might just murder him now. With that, Jung-soo reminds him never to underestimate his opponent and be wary of anyone with an inkling of power. With that, we come to the end of the Hogaman Gate destruction arc, and finally the blame is shifted away from Jung-soo. What happened to the Blood Preacher and his enemy, Jin Gang? However, there's a more pressing issue. Is Kang-chan alive? And how will Jung-soo's battle with Kang-hyung be resolved? And then, perhaps the most important question of all, when will we finally meet Shin-Ryong, the mortal enemy of our anti-hero?